So what game was my favorite game of last generation, PS3 and Xbox 360 generation? I'll give you a couple of hints before I tell you. The first hint is it's an RPG. The second hint is that the game came out in the end of the PS3 and 360 life cycle. Yes, there still are games coming out for the system, but it came out very late in its life cycle. Another hint is it has 4-player co-op, and another hint is it's not an exclusive to either the PS3 or the 360. It's actually a multi-platforming game. So overall, I'll give you a minute to think. So what is the game I'm talking about? What was my favorite game of the PS3 and 360 generation? And I still play it to this day, believe it or not. I'll give you a little bit to think about it. So, what game do you think it is? If you guessed Borderlands 2, then you would have to be correct. That is my most played game on last generation. Yes, it did come out on the later half of the consoles, so it was a very late game to come out on those systems. But that was my most played game on the systems. In fact, like I told you at the beginning of the video, I'm still playing that game to this day. I still pop that in every once in a while and still play it. It has to be my favorite game. For example, let's say someone robbed my games and they said, I'll be generous enough to give you one game out of your collection you can take with you and have for the rest of your life, but you can't have any of your other games. I would pick Borderlands 2 without a doubt. Something about the loot and shoot mechanic of the game is just so awesome. It's like everywhere you turn the corner, you're always getting new guns, new loot, new armor, new equipment. It's so awesome to just open a lot of chests and just always know that you're going to be getting a new gun, some new armor, some new everything for your character. That's the reason I love the game so much. Not a lot of games can do that. It always had a feeling of reward is always going to be around the corner, and that's why I love the game. I never thought the game got boring. Of course, most games do get boring, and of course, Borderlands 2 did get boring, but it's one of those games I can always come back to after I take breaks. I never feel like it's a boring game. And in terms of PS3 and 360, it's one of those games that actually had a lot of content. Believe it or not, I actually put 1,000 plus hours in the Borderlands 2, and I have played it on PS3, 360, and the PC. So that tells you how much I love this game. Is there 1,000 hours plus of content in this video game? Probably not, to be realistic. It's just me loving the game that much that I put over 1,000 plus hours. It's easily going to spike to 2,000 or 3,000 hours in my lifetime because I just love that game. And the reason Borderlands 2 is my favorite instead of Borderlands 1 and Borderlands the pre-sequel, the reason is Borderlands 2 just felt fresh and new and unique for me. All the locations felt varied. The weapons felt varied enough, things like that. I did play Borderlands 1 prior to Borderlands 2, and I can tell you, when I first popped in that Borderlands 1, I couldn't get into the Borderlands series. I tried to play Borderlands, and it felt like all the areas were too much alike. It felt like the guns felt the same. It felt everything too similar. It felt like upgrading your character was too hard and too difficult, and the menus really sucked in that game. But then when Borderlands 2 came out, everything changed. They made the menus much more easy to navigate when you're upgrading your character or changing weapons and things like that. It was just a more natural and nice experience to the gamer. So that's why I really love Borderlands 2. And once I played Borderlands 2 for about 2 or 3 hours, I was immediately addicted to the Borderlands universe. The only thing you can say bad about the game, or some people think it's a negative, is that the graphics of Borderlands 2, or the Borderlands series in general, is just a really weird game. It's not a more modern or realistic looking game. It's actually a shell-shaded game. It kind of looks like a comic book, but in my opinion, I think they actually made some of the best graphics. Making it a comic book come to life is just so amazing. I love the graphics in the game. That's one reason I love it as well. The graphics are so different. If you look at your Call of Duties, your Halo, Killzone, anything that has to do with shooting. It's just realistic. With Borderlands, they didn't have to make it unrealistic, but they tried to try something new, and I really admire the company for trying something new. And to stand, you can't please everyone, but for me, the graphics are amazing. It's like a comic book coming to life. Overall, it is my favorite game of last generation. That will still be true to me and true to my heart. I love that game. I will never give up that game. That game is just so amazing. And it's so fun to play 4-player co-op. And the cool thing about the game is when you play co-op, you also get better armor and better guns and better equipment when you're playing with more people, because they made the enemies more harder. So the loot and equipment you get was actually more better when you played with more people. That's one thing I really liked with the game. And despite Borderlands 2 being an old game, I think it came out in 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. Despite it being an old game, they were supporting that game a lot. They had a whole bunch of DLCs. They had like 4 main DLC campaigns. They also had like 2 new playable characters. They also had headhunter packs. They also had 2 level upgrade packs. They had so much into that game. They didn't leave their fans disappointed or leave their fans wanting more. They did give the fans more of what they wanted, which I do really love about Borderlands 2. They didn't have to support Borderlands 2 as long as they did. That's what I'm kind of afraid of, that they're not going to make a Borderlands 3. Is Borderlands 2 perfect? No, by not means. The problems with Borderlands 2 are the guns aren't really too different from each other. They claim there's like a gazillion guns in the game, but realistically, they're just different skins of the same gun. Like you may have 2 of the same gun, but one has a scope and one doesn't have a scope. One may shoot faster and one may shoot slower. One may reload faster and one may reload slower. Those are just things that they call new guns, but realistically, the game doesn't have a godzillion guns like the package or the box says. But overall, there's enough new guns in the game to make the game feel fresh every time you open up a crate or open up a box or open up or go to like the vendors in the game, which are like vending machines. Like in real life you have Coke vending machines, but in the game when you go to a vendor, you have like vendors like Marcus Ammunitions, which will sell armor to you, or guns to you, excuse me, it will sell guns to you. So those things really kept the game fresh. Overall, that is my most played game of the last generation. I would highly definitely pick that game up if you can. It is also on the new PS4 and Xbox One as a remake, so you can get the Handsome Collection, which includes Borderlands 2, Borderlands the pre-sequel, and it also includes all the DLC for both games for $60. That is one heck of a deal, I'm not gonna lie. That is well worth the money. Even if you played it before, that's a really good deal, $60. 2 games, all the DLC, which that would cost you technically by itself around $200-300 for all that content, which was very sweet. Now, the reason I didn't play Borderlands the pre-sequel is because it felt like Borderlands 2.5. It was just more Borderlands, which was great, but the thing is, a lot of people said since it's going to be on the moon, the characters felt more floaty, and you weren't jumping the same. It was a little bit more floaty, but the real reason I didn't pick it up because it was more of Borderlands 2, and since I already invested a lot of time in Borderlands 2, I didn't find myself really needing another Borderlands until Borderlands 3 comes out on the market, if it's ever gonna happen, which I hope the company makes it happen. Please make the game happen. But anyway, if they never make a Borderlands 3, then I'm probably never ever gonna actually play the pre-sequel just because it's more Borderlands 2. It's like Borderlands 2.5. So that's the reason why you're asking why Borderlands 2 out of all the Borderlands games is my favorite one out of the whole franchise. And that's my game. So peace out. I'll see you guys later in my next video. I'm out.